Picture this: Elvis Presley, 4 months before his death, tired and struggling with his demons, decides to take a city bus instead of his Cadillac. Sitting across from him is Rose Patterson, a woman who's lost everything but somehow still believes in the goodness of people. Neither one knew they were about to have a conversation that would change everything they thought they knew about life, loss, and the power of human connection. If you believe that the most meaningful conversations can happen between complete strangers, you're going to love this story. Hit that subscribe button because we're sharing true stories that'll remind you why human connection matters more than ever. March 15, 1977. Elvis Presley woke up in Graceland feeling like a stranger in his own life. At 42, he was trapped by his fame, suffocated by the constant attention, and struggling with prescription medications that were supposed to help, but only made everything worse. You know what he did that Tuesday morning? Something he hadn't done in 20 years. He decided to take the city bus. Now, his security team thought he'd lost his mind. "Elvis, you can't just ride public transportation," they said. But here's the thing about Elvis in those final months. He was desperately searching for something real, something authentic. He was tired of living in a bubble. So he put on a simple jacket, dark sunglasses, and a baseball cap, and walked to the nearest bus stop on Elvis Presley Boulevard. And nobody, not even Elvis himself, knew that this simple decision would lead to one of the most profound conversations of his life. Rose Patterson had been riding that same Memphis city bus route for 15 years. Every Tuesday and Thursday, she'd take the number 42 bus downtown to volunteer at the Methodist Hospital. At 82 years old, Rose had lived through more heartbreak than most people could imagine. Born in 1895, she'd survived the Spanish flu pandemic, the Great Depression, 2 world wars, and the loss of 3 of her 4 children. Her husband William had passed away 10 years earlier, and her remaining son lived in California with his own family. Rose lived alone in a small apartment, but she wasn't bitter. Somehow, through all that loss, she'd maintained an unshakable faith in the goodness of people. Here's what made Rose special. She had this gift for really listening to people, not just hearing their words, but understanding their hearts. The hospital staff loved her because she could sit with the loneliest patient and somehow make them feel less alone. When Elvis got on that bus that Tuesday morning, there were only about 12 people scattered throughout. He chose a seat near the back, hoping to blend in. Across the aisle sat this elderly woman with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun, wearing a simple blue dress and carrying a worn leather purse. Rose glanced at the new passenger and noticed something in his eyes that she'd seen countless times in the hospital: pain. Deep, soul-crushing pain. She didn't recognize him as Elvis Presley. To her, he was just another human being who looked like he was carrying the weight of the world. Now, here's where Rose's natural instincts kicked in. After about 5 minutes of silence, she leaned slightly toward him and said gently, "Son, you look like you could use someone to talk to." Elvis looked up, surprised. When was the last time someone had called him son? "I'm sorry, ma'am?" "I said you looked troubled," Rose repeated with that warm smile that had comforted thousands of people over the years. "Sometimes it helps to talk to a stranger. I'm a good listener." What happened next was something Elvis hadn't experienced in decades: a genuine human conversation with no agenda, no requests for autographs, no ulterior motives. Just 2 people talking. "You know," Elvis said carefully, "sometimes I feel like I'm living someone else's life, like I'm trapped in this prison that I built myself." Rose nodded knowingly. "That's a heavy burden to carry. What kind of prison are we talking about?" And somehow, without revealing who he was, Elvis started talking. He told her about feeling isolated, about struggling with expectations, about losing touch with the person he used to be. Rose listened without judgment, occasionally asking gentle questions that showed she truly understood. But here's where the conversation took an unexpected turn. Rose started sharing her own story. "You want to know about prisons?" Rose said softly. Let me tell you about mine. I buried 3 children, son. 3 babies that I carried, raised, and loved with everything I had." Elvis stopped talking and really looked at this woman for the first time. There was something in her voice, not bitterness, but a depth of experience that commanded respect. "My oldest, James, died in Korea in 1951. He was 23, about to get married. My daughter Mary passed from cancer when she was 31, left behind 2 little ones, and my youngest, Robert, died in a car accident 5 years ago." She paused, looking out the window. "For years after each loss, I thought I was living in a prison too. A prison of grief, of anger, of asking why me, over and over again." Elvis was completely captivated. Here was someone who'd faced real tragedy, not the manufactured problems of celebrity life, but genuine heartbreak. How did you survive all that?" Rose turned back to him with eyes that held both sadness and incredible strength. "You know what I learned? The prison door was never locked. I was keeping myself trapped." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small worn photograph. "This is William, my husband. He used to say, 'Rose, honey, we can't control what happens to us, but we can control what we do with what happens to us.'" Elvis stared at the photo of a kind-faced man in a military uniform. That's beautiful. "The day I realized that my pain could become my purpose, everything changed," Rose continued. "Instead of asking, 'Why did this happen to me?' I started asking, 'How can I use this to help others?'" What Rose said next would stay with Elvis for the rest of his life. "Son, I don't know what kind of prison you think you're in, but I'm willing to bet the key is right there in your pocket. Sometimes we just need someone to remind us to use it." Elvis felt tears behind his sunglasses. When was the last time someone had spoken to him with such wisdom and compassion? "You've lost so much, but you still believe in people?" "More than ever," Rose said firmly. "Every day I volunteer at the hospital, I see people facing their darkest moments. And you know what I've learned? We're all just walking each other home. The only thing that matters is how much love we give along the way." As the bus approached downtown, Elvis made a decision that would change both their lives. He removed his sunglasses and quietly said, "Mrs. Patterson, Rose Patterson. Mrs. Patterson, I need to tell you something. My name is Elvis Presley." Rose looked at him more carefully, and recognition slowly dawned on her face. But instead of the usual excitement or requests for autographs, she simply smiled. "Well, I'll be. You know what, Elvis? That doesn't change a single word of what I said. Pain is pain, and healing is healing, no matter who you are." As they reached Rose's stop, Elvis stood up. "Mrs. Patterson, would you mind if I visited you sometime? I'd like to hear more of your stories." Rose's eyes lit up. "Son, I'd be honored. But let me ask you something. What are you going to do with that key we talked about?" Elvis thought for a moment. I think I need to remember why I started singing in the first place. It wasn't for fame or money. It was to make people feel something good." "Now you're talking," Rose said with satisfaction. Over the next 4 months, until Elvis's death in August, he visited Rose Patterson every Tuesday. Not as Elvis Presley the superstar, but as a man seeking wisdom from someone who truly lived. Rose would make tea, and they'd sit in her small living room, talking about life, faith, love, and loss. She showed him photo albums of her children, told him stories about her marriage, shared the letters her sons had written from war. But here's the beautiful part. Elvis started sharing too, really sharing. He talked about his mother Gladys, his fears about fatherhood, his struggles with fame, and his deep desire to do something meaningful with his life. During one of these visits, Elvis asked Rose what she needed. Her apartment was small, her furniture was old, and he wanted to help. But you know what Rose said? "Elvis, honey, what I need you can't buy. I need to know that my stories matter, that my pain has had a purpose. Just by listening to me, you've given me the greatest gift. You've helped an old woman feel like her life meant something." But Elvis, being Elvis, couldn't just leave it at that. He quietly arranged for Rose's medical bills to be paid, had her apartment renovated, and set up a fund to ensure she'd never want for anything. More importantly, he started incorporating the lessons she taught him into his final performances. The concerts from those last months show a different Elvis, more present, more connected to his audience, more aware of the healing power of music. Their last conversation was on August 10, 1977, just 6 days before Elvis died. Rose later said she knew something was different about him that day. He seemed lighter somehow, more at peace. "Rose," he said, "I want you to know that meeting you saved my life. You reminded me who I was underneath all the noise, and you reminded me that God uses broken people to help other broken people," she replied. "That's the most beautiful thing about this life. We're all just walking each other home." When Elvis died 6 days later, Rose was devastated. But at his funeral, she realized something profound. Their friendship had changed her just as much as it had changed him. You see, Rose had spent years helping others, but feeling like her own pain was meaningless. Through Elvis, she learned that sharing her story, her wisdom, her hard-won peace, that was her greatest gift to the world. After Elvis's death, Rose started speaking at churches, community centers, anywhere people would listen. She shared her story of loss and healing, and the lessons she'd learned from her friendship with a famous man who just needed someone to remind him of his worth. She lived until 1985, and right up until the end, she was helping people understand that our pain can become our purpose, that healing comes through connection, and that wisdom is meant to be shared. After Rose died, her family found dozens of letters from people whose lives had been changed by her story. But the most precious possession was a handwritten note from Elvis found in her Bible. "Dear Rose, thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see myself. Thank you for reminding me that the prison door was never locked. You saved my life by showing me how to live it. Your friend always, Elvis." You know what this story teaches us? Sometimes the most important conversations happen between strangers on a bus. Sometimes wisdom comes from the most unexpected places. And sometimes, when we think we have nothing left to give, sharing our story becomes the greatest gift we can offer. Rose Patterson proved that age doesn't diminish our value, it increases it. Every year of life, every moment of pain, every season of joy adds to the wisdom we can share with others. That number 42 bus route in Memphis still runs today, and there's a small plaque at one of the stops that reads, "In memory of Rose Patterson and Elvis Presley, who proved that meaningful connections can happen anywhere, anytime, between any two people willing to truly see each other." Here's what I want you to take away from this incredible story. You never know when someone needs exactly what you have to offer. Rose thought she was just a lonely old woman with nothing left to give. Elvis thought he was trapped in a prison of his own making. But when they really saw each other, when they really listened, they discovered that broken people helping broken people is one of the most beautiful things in this world. This amazing story reminds us that wisdom has no age limit and that the most profound healing can happen in the most ordinary moments. If Rose and Elvis's friendship touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel and share this story with someone who might need to hear it. Let us know in the comments about a time when a conversation with a stranger changed your perspective, because you never know who might need to hear your story today.